The landscape is changing right now if you want to break it up in two pieces. One is like the product software development side of things, and the other one's on the services side. If you want to be able to just pure play just services and that's your end goal, I mean, you can still do it with a low amount of CapEx. You can come in and just with some training, maybe some templates, maybe a little bit of consulting to be able to get that business up and running. That's great. That's freaking phenomenal. When I decided to be able to leave Shopify, my goal was really to be able to bring some of these top tier products to market, which is some of the things that like we're working on that I don't think anyone else really is. And I want to continue building badass tech.
Yep.
Who says tech can't be human?
I have Josh Danielson here with me. We're gonna be talking all about security, what you're doing. Josh, we just had an opportunity to meet. James Sinclair, our director of sales, introduced us, and he mentioned that you are starting a company. You were at Shopify, but now you're venturing out and doing your own thing. What's this company that you're doing?
So the name of the company is called Kustos. It's Kustos. It's easy to remember. It's a little bit sticky, right? It's Latin for guardian, and what we're here to be able to do is provide a variety of security services for from pen testing, risk assessments, and all the basic foundational pieces of a security program, even a little bit more of the cutting edge type of assessments around like Clasure or GCP assessments. But really our biggest focus is going to be, and we're seeing a lot of value add for customers, is on the AI space. So I know we'll probably dive into the opportunity space a little bit more, but I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors happening within the industry right now. I'm looking to be able to bring a lot of the products and solutions we're developing internally within Shopify, and then bring those to be able to come to market as well too. So I think we'll dive in a little bit more, but I think we have some unique offerings in a space that's been largely undifferentiated, a little bit vanilla. So I'm here to be able to hopefully shake things up a little bit.
Let's jump into that. You were at Shopify, and now you're building some of the tech outside of Shopify. So what were you doing at Shopify? What was your role, and what were the things that you're building that were so epic that you're doing a company on it now?
Yeah, well, a lot. I think some products and solutions are going to be easier to bring to market, and where to be a set of services and offerings versus a product and platform as well too. So we're starting off on the services side of things. But in my role at Shopify, I was the head of enterprise security. So pretty much responsible for everything on the corporate side of things. If it's touching a Shopify employee, it was within my purview when it comes to security. So we're working on some cool zero trust stuff that was like a little bit more cutting edge. So for example, getting a better idea as far as leveraging some of the embedded capabilities within device attestations within devices, which alleviates a lot of the controls that you have to be able to build or look externally. We can build a lot of those solutions internally, just leveraging like some of the new attestation technologies that have been coming out from Apple. That allows you to be able to have a degree of authentication on each device with a very thin client, very thin presence local on, which is very different than some of the predominant players and solutions on the space. And we're able to have more refined access. So for example, when a Shopify employee was trying to access something, for example, like a specific merchant store, we were able to build out some specific attestation workflows as well too, to even whittle that into what they can actually access with it that way too. So a lot of zero trust solutions are maybe you can get granulars, maybe the apps, and maybe they have the ability to do permissions, but we definitely took things to a next level. We did application allow listing, but like for real. So we could talk about that a little bit more too. And that's
so really zero trust. Nothing was trusted. It was allow list only.
Correct. And it was for real. So we actually had like an application, we had a true software catalog that allows us to be able to actually know what we have and to be able to, I probably won't be able to share too much of the technical details of the implementation, but I'm happy to talk about broad strokes. And biggest one I think has been getting a lot of value, and I've been talking a lot more, and people seem to be very interested in our use of some of these AI solutions around LLMs. So for example, around how you even just automate some more simple tasks around maybe doing customer questionnaires, which I've been getting a lot of attention for. We're able to reduce the amount of effort and resources by maybe 80 to 90% in a lot of cases with a high degree of accuracy. So a lot of these technologies are still evolving. It felt a lot of times as soon as we build something, next month or two, we have to re-architect everything because the new GPT model comes out. But we'll see what happens when GPT-5 comes out too, and we'll have to do some re-architecting as well there too. So we're working on a variety of different solutions that I think are a little bit more cutting edge that I want to be able to bring to the market that are maybe 1 to 3, maybe even 5 years behind right now. I've been a little bit surprised. I was hesitant to see like putting an LLM wrapper against some of your internal docs to be able to import those into some type of output. Would it be a questionnaire? It seems like a pretty simple thing, and actually it kind of is. So I'm kind of surprised to see that the market hasn't been able to capitalize on these. So not that I've been able to find. So I'm looking to be able to bring the future forward just a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's a very important topic. Doing the vendor questionnaires, everybody goes through them, whether you're a vendor or doing enterprise security. I know I've seen it on both sides, and it was the bane of my existence. When I was on the customer success side, working at a vendor, we couldn't start our engagement. The customer would be pretty much asking us, begging us, hey, when can we start? But they might be waiting for questions from our team, maybe the sales team, or they might be waiting for answers from their compliance or legal teams on whether or not they can move forward. So I've seen that firsthand, and I'm a little surprised that there's not more companies doing it. It's about time. I'm excited that you're jumping into the ring and looking at that problem space. But it sounds like you're also looking at other problem spaces, doing consulting and services for the time being while you're building a product. What other areas and technologies are you looking at in addition to security questionnaires?
I mean, in addition to just like I mentioned starting off with the foundational pieces of security program, I feel like that's another area that's been severely underserved. When you talk about who's doing your annual pen test, what is the background of that pen tester? More and more, you're starting to see more junior folks being assigned to these cases, and I think it's turning to a little bit of a mill in some cases too. So at Kustos, we only employ individuals from some of the top tier security programs from the top brand names you can probably imagine. I'm happy to be able to share more during a sales pitch, but they're ones that are household names that even my mom would know. And they're people that every single one of them I've worked with as well too, as we're starting off. So bringing in just the level of quality is being raised. So what we're able to do so far is be able to find more critical vulnerabilities in pen tests that others weren't able to find as we see from previous assessments, even on the same application where there are no changes. In other cases, when it comes to risk assessments, we're able to give more practical advice and recommendations where, I mean, a lot of people have gone to maybe one of the big four and got a 62-page report telling you how many ways you suck. Well, I mean, realistically, most programs, especially in these days and age, they're not going to be able to focus on a 50, 100-page type of report. They need maybe a top 5, top 10, and what are things that really matter, and what are the opportunities you actually can balance that to implement these assurance controls to help close those gaps as quickly. So that's some of the experience you can only bring to the people when you have actually practitioners working on these types of projects and work. And when you have the best in the world that have been already doing on this for a few years in different kind of companies, it's just a different value proposition. So that's what I'm looking to be able to bring to the table. The cool AI stuff that's maybe a little bit easier to be able to sell, and we're putting together some cool demos around that. But even just the basics, right?
Yeah.
Continue to see more and more in the market that just the pies continue to be able to grow. There's more and more opportunities to be able to add value. And it's, again, an area that I feel like has been underserved.
Being the head of security at Shopify, I'm sure at some points, or maybe even many points at your job, had a technical focus, and then other points maybe you were more so serving as a CISO or kind of that ultimate decision maker. With being head of security, I see two paths where you could do a company, or you could go and be a CISO, even at a Fortune 50, 500 company, a publicly traded company. I saw this report by Hitch Partners that said that the average salary for a publicly traded CISO that works at a publicly traded company is around $450,000 base. Incredible. There's a lot of obligations and responsibilities that comes with, especially seeing what happened with SEC and SolarWinds. Why'd you choose this path? There's a lot less money in the front, and there's a lot more money being a CISO. So walk us through the thought process and how you landed on, no, I'm not going to look at those distractions. I'm going to do my business.
I mean, for me, life is a series of games. And
Yeah.
there's certain rules to the games, there are different players, there's certain constraints. There's also certain endings to a game. You want to know when the game actually ends. And for me, I got tired of playing the same games. I mean, in my previous role at Shopify, I was a CISO for an S&P 500 company called Copart, based here in the Dallas area. And when I jumped to go from be a CISO, be the head of enterprise security at Shopify, people were like, oh no, like, why are you're leaving to be a CISO? Like, did something happen? Are you okay? It's like, no, dude, like, I wanted to do this. Like,
Yeah.
we're building about world-class products at Shopify with a team of like high-class talent that you can't do almost anywhere else. There's only a handful of companies that you can be handed a set of devs to be able to build whatever we want.
Yeah.
At Copart, which was a phenomenal company, very well ran. I mean, I had to be a design partner with a lot of seed and Series A kind of companies, which is great to be able to help me mold and get my creative spirit type about. But that was enough for me, right? So like inevitably, people look at an org chart and see what's at the top. And I want to be security, at least you want to be the CISO. And I think a lot of junior folks, like when you're coming up, like I just want to go to the top.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way. And I think if you look in other areas like academia, not everyone graduates from whatever school and wants to be a professor. But that's the top of that pyramid, right? So I think it's kind of a false dichotomy for people to be able to say, like, I want to be at the top of the org chart. And I think in big tech particularly does a great job of recognizing that, where they do have staff engineers, distinguished engineers, and you do have them, and they're on par with directors, VPs, as far as clout, influence, and impact within the organizations as well, too. So anyone who wants to become a CISO just because at the top of the org chart, have at it. The best thing I tell people in this day and age, go do it. Go get those things. And then you're going to realize that's not really the things that you really thought it was and what makes you happy. Dealing with people isn't always maybe the funnest part. Maybe the technology is, right? But I like working with people. But everyone has their own taste and flavor. So.
Yeah. I need to jump in for a second and share some details about a special group that we've created for you, our listeners. We understand the importance of creativity in cybersecurity, and Hacker Valley has created a special Cyber Creators Mastermind. Each month, we meet and discuss how to break down technical concepts through stories, the intricacies and opportunities of using audio and video to highlight what's important in cybersecurity, and we share how you can use content to highlight the hard work that you put into your craft. You can check out the mastermind by visiting hackervalley.com/mastermind. We'd love to help unlock your creative potential and would love to see you there. I got connected with this group called Security Tinkerers. Shout out Security Tinkerers, love them. It's a group of security leaders, a bunch of CISOs mostly. And every Friday we get together and we talk about some of the trials and tribulations that we experienced that week. Hearing the stories from CISOs, I knew at that moment I didn't want to be a CISO. I thought that there was other paths for me. Thank goodness I found Hacker Valley and had a great business partner in Chris Cochran who helped me build this thing. And now I get to focus on content. And it sounds like you're kind of like on a similar journey where you're breaking the mold. You could stay technical. You could start a business doing consulting. MSSP is very hot right now. But you're kind of like doing a little bit of both, where you're doing the consulting and building a product. How do you balance that? I've heard VCs specifically want to see one or the other, but I'm sure there's opportunities to do both. How do you balance putting time and dedication to the product versus delivering services and pathfinding with your prospects and customers?
Yeah, I mean, the landscape is changing right now. If you want to break it up in two pieces, one is like the product software development side of things, and the other one's on the services side. If you want to be able to just pure play just services and that's your end goal, I mean, you can still do it with a low amount of CapEx. You can come in and just with some training, maybe some templates, maybe a little bit of consulting to be able to get that business up and running. That's great. That's freaking phenomenal. When I decided to be able to leave Shopify, my goal was really to be able to bring some of these top tier products to market, which is some of the things that like we're working on that I don't think anyone else really is. And I want to continue building badass tech.
Yep.
So that is the envision and goal. I think the landscape is changing in a way that's not really recognized right now. Today, if you want to go build a technology product, what do you have to do? You have to go hire 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 devs. You have to maybe take 6 to 18 months before you can have an MVP. You probably have to go raise a round from one of these VCs, right? Go raise whatever dollar amount it actually is. The landscape is changing dramatically right now, where you're already seeing on the VC side where maybe they're raising a $1 billion fund. Now they're raising like a $200 million fund. Instead of raising a $100 million fund, now they're raising $50 million. So you're seeing the demographics of them change, because the thesis being there's going to be a lot less capital that's going to be required to start these companies. Like GitHub Copilot and all these other solutions. Again, instead of taking 7 devs to be able to start up in 18 months, you're going to be able to, in maybe next 1 to 3 years, with maybe 2 kick-ass devs, and to be able to do it in 3 to 6 months. So that's the thesis that I'm already banking on right now too. You can see a lot of different strategies that VCs are also banking on. I heard of another one last week, was called the 80-90 fund. What they're going to come back with, I think the definition was they're going to do 80% of the resources and then 80% of the value of current SaaS offerings and do it at only 90% drop in cost. So some of these very generic products that you're like, this seems kind of expensive for paying whatever dollar amount. Yeah, they kind of are. With Copilot and all these other solutions, you're going to see the nominal cost of software drop dramatically in the next 1 to 3 years. They're already playing some of these theses right now. So I'm excited to be able to see, instead of having to go raise around and get the pressures from doing that, it's going to be take the free cash flow from the service side and then put it into the product side. So
right before we hit record, you mentioned that an organization that you worked at has millions of lines, or maybe it was 1 million lines of code that was developed with GitHub Copilot. That is incredible. I'm sure that you're using something like GitHub Copilot, or your team is using something like GitHub Copilot to help accelerate the prototyping and development of products that you build. What has been your experience with AI so far?
People are really scared because they don't know what it really is. But once you dive into the details of things, as of today, it may be on the breakthrough of like an AGI, but a lot of the capabilities that we're actually monetizing right now is the fancy autofill, right? It is able to replace tier 1, tier 2 type of support. So that's the obvious use case that we have right now. And I was like shocked when we started building these solutions within Shopify maybe a year ago, when these GPTs started becoming more commoditized and more public. I expect, like, we were talking, like, this is going to go to market in 3-6 months. We're like maybe 1 to 2 months ahead. And the reality is, fast forward a year, and there still hasn't been anyone else really taking advantage of these areas. And I don't know. I don't know if it's a talent issue. I don't know if it's a motivation issue. I don't know if it's a lack of understanding issue from some of these current organizations. There's so many organizations that I thought they were going to be, one of our top IDPs, for example, to be very informational, what are top misconfigurations that we have within our SaaS platforms right now?
Big time.
They have data across all their customers. They don't have to reveal who those people are, but we realized based on your traffic patterns, this may be misconfigured. I thought we had FIDO configured across all entire organization. And we were in a great spot. Now we see these FIDO authentications happening. Are you sure about that? These are kind of basic configurations that you're able to do, probably without any type of LLM models, but you can aggregate and definitely get a higher level of conceptual knowledge that we just haven't seen come to market. So again, I don't know why, but it's obviously not happening. So looking to be able to help close that gap.
Oh, that's great. I use AI all the time, and I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I see people talking about how they can't trust OpenAI. Maybe that's the case, but what I do know is OpenAI can help me with some challenges that I need to go away. One big challenge that I face, and everyone faces this, is note taking. You have a meeting with someone, you need to get notes from that meeting. There's AI note takers. Well, what happens when you want to condense those notes into a specific format? You could take the transcript. I use Zapier. We take the transcript of our meetings, then we drop it into a ChatGPT template as a templated prompt, and then it gives us back the notes and automatically pushes them into Notion for us. Some of this is using AI, like the note generation. We also used AI to create the code when Zapier didn't have the functions within it. So I created a few zaps for Notion to make a page publicly accessible, and also created a zap to grab the transcript in a different way because one of the API calls wasn't in Zapier. So I've been using it a lot. And I see, for me, my biggest use case is transcribing and coding. A lot of the Hacker Valley website is built using ChatGPT and a little bit of Copilot. And I think it's the era of Copilots. Like, we're about to start seeing the autofill really be a thing, and not just autofill words, but autofill separate pieces of information, combine it, understand it, and then apply it. What is one thing that you're excited to see out of the AI space when it comes to the space of cybersecurity?
I think one of the biggest opportunities is to be able to show the value proposition for our tools and extract the value we get out of these things a lot better. There's a lot of areas that you think, if you're a CISO and you're prioritizing, what are the top areas that you like, your tooling or your solutions, you feel like you're well managed? I don't know, maybe towards the top in most programs, it'd maybe make it EDR, maybe an EPP, maybe an IDP, whatnot. Those are maybe some of the areas that are doing okay. Maybe like SIM is like maybe the rangiest, because a lot of companies like are heavy on detection and whatnot too. Maybe some just use it for forensics, but there's definitely some towards the very bottom that I think most organizations do a not so great job, or most security programs don't do a great job of. So for example, maybe the vulnerability management space. I've been part of 7 companies, top tier companies, from finance to e-commerce to defense, and pretty much almost everyone's really, really, really bad at vulnerability management. There's a few key insights there. Oh, it's horrible, right? I mean, you can see it. I mean, the best organizations maybe just patch fast, right? And they're not even patching everything. That's one of their competitive advantages, right? They have very quick visibility. I pulled the data not too long ago, and I was absolutely shocked. And I'm going to get a lot of crap from vendors on this, but they're not adding value onto vulnerability management space. And I looked at all of our software catalog. What are all the types of softwares we actually have, and what percentage of coverage we had from the vulnerability management players out of space? I'm not going to name the names, but you already know the top names in this space. They roughly aggregate to around 16 billion in market cap total. The amount of coverage they had, a variety across all those solutions, was in the single digits. If I tell you I have 100 apps and you're able to scan less than 10 of those, does it make sense to be able to continue doing scans? Probably not. Your efforts when you're so scarce with resources, probably going to be focused on doing maybe better patch management. How can you do better patch management? Well, you want to be able to know what causes outages, or you can roll back more quickly. And these are the areas where automation, specifically through AI, can help maybe exacerbate and bring those solutions up to, bring those patches, bring everyone up to a better patch level overall too. So it is 2 pieces. For example, I think vulnerability management itself has a very specific purpose. Like when you have a specific vulnerability critical vulnerability that gets released, and you want to be like, what's our current status? Like you need to be able to know that quickly. But doing these programmatic scans every single month, every single quarter, like so many programs do, doesn't make a lot of sense for most organizations. And you can better automate and use some of these AI tooling to be able to help enhance patch management. That's another area that I'm focused on. That's maybe a little bit more long-term, but I think there's a lot of value to be able to add. Vulnerability management was one of the worst areas when I joined security 18, 17 years ago. It's still just as bad. It's ridiculous that you have all these vendors.
It's probably worse.
It's probably worse
because there's a lot more. There's a lot more to do when it comes to vulnerability management.
Yes, there's so many more applications. There's so much more diverse. They're much more complicated in this ecosystem. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be able to add. Why are people getting breached? A lot of stuff is the same crap when I started. Both of us have started so long ago. It's credentials theft. It's patch management misconfigurations. That's freaking silly. Why are we buying all these other products? Why are CISOs continue to buy these products that don't attack any of their top 5 risks? So I think there's a disparity in where people are spending their money, programs are spending their money, and where their actual risks are.
One thing that I did want to bring up is genius leaves clues. This is one of my favorite quotes. There's a lot of the greats that have said this quote in the past. And speaking to a great right now that is on his way to do even greater things. For anyone that's listening right now that wants to step out of being a technical practitioner or avoid just going to the top of the org chart like you mentioned and create their own path, what would be your piece of advice for them?
I mean, someone who's already mastered the technical side, and it depends on if you want to be able to learn the 2 things. If you learn the technical side, it's either going to be the business and just working with other teams to be able to build teams. When it comes to the business side, I mean, the easiest thing to be able to do if you're interviewing, want to be able to learn about your company, I mean, look at quarterly earnings reports if you're public. I mean, that's one of the best ways to be able to understand how well the business is doing. You'll be surprised. I was interviewing with some company a few years ago, and I just read the last 2 or 3 quarterly earnings report, and the CEO was a freaking mess on the earnings report, just talking over the analyst, was contradicting their CFO. And it was like, I didn't have to know a whole lot about the company to know that there wasn't a lot of good interactions that happened at senior leadership, and that they're actually in some trouble as well. So reading your quarterly earnings reports, have ChatGPT maybe do a digest of and give you like a summary to be able to pull those things out. You want to impress your next interviewer and you actually want to teach them about something about business, ask them something within ChatGPT and pull out some insights from there as far as what are the opportunity spaces that you're trying to tackle next. What are the pressure points that the business is starting to be able to follow? I know everyone says the same old focus on the business. That's maybe a more practical piece to be able to work with. When it comes to working in leading teams, I mean, I'm a big fan of like Myers-Briggs, Enneagrams and whatnot too.
Yes.
Understanding yourself, what are your strengths and weaknesses? For example, I'm a type 8. I'm a challenger, right? So understand the personality traits that I work well with and the circumstances I work well. So for example, as a challenger, I have no problem coming in and shaking things up and and getting the change needed to be able to get some stuff done.
Yep.
That also can mean that I have to be much more aware of the situation because I can be less empathetic, and I can actually prioritize maybe sometimes getting work done over people's feelings or their purview and whatnot too. So I have to be much more mindful of that as well too. Our strengths are almost always a double-edged sword. The things we're best at, the double other side of that, it cuts us ourselves. I can get crap done, but maybe it comes at cost of people. Every single person is going to have their own as well too. So before you even start talking about other people, you should probably know yourself. I don't want to turn this into a self-therapy type of session, but maybe you should go see the therapist after too and talk about that. But
I love that. Focus on yourself. It's almost like doing an asset inventory on the things that you that make you who you are. I'm an Enneagram 3, wing 8, so I definitely pick up what you're putting down on that. And when you launch your product, you got to come back on the podcast. For anyone that wants to stay up to date with Josh, I'm going to drop all of his information, social handles in the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching. And with that, we will see everyone next time.